Are children capable of consenting to gender affirming care? And should governments restrict or block access to it? In this video, we present nuanced arguments on access to gender affirming care and the ability of children to consent to it. Welcome. You're watching Basic Hale. Sex is a biological phenomenon, while gender is regarded as a social construct. But in this video, we make no distinction between gender and sex. Sex is female or intersex or male based on chromosomes X and Y and how they manifest physically in genitalia and reproductive organs. For simplicity of understanding, we decided to eliminate the distinction between sex and gender because people going through gender affirming care have the intention to change their bodies to appear and feel like a male if they were born female, or like a female if they were born male, or somewhere in between. On the issue of consent, there are two factors at play. The first is cognitive development, while the second is unbiased information to make informed decisions. But before we look at these two factors, we must understand the age of consent and the age of majority. The most common age of consent in Europe and parts of North America is 16 years. This is about the ability to consent to sex, which is different from the age of majority. The age of majority is the legal age at which a person can sign legally binding contractual agreements. These ages are arbitrarily codified into law, and the randomness of the age of consent and the age of majority is evident in the discrepancies and variations from state to state and from country to country. This is because they are not based on scientific facts. For example, setting the age of consent at 18 years was originally based on morality. According to Jean Piaget, children reach adult-level cognitive development around the age of 12 years. This stage of cognitive development is called the formal operational stage. At this stage, children can engage in abstract theoretical discourse. They can question norms and stereotypes in society, and they can make logical decisions based on reasoning and evidence. More recent research in neuroscience indicates that brain development finishes when people are in their mid-20s. However, studies in cognition and learning show that people are able to make informed decisions long before brain development is finished. There have been critiques of Jean Piaget's theory by psychologists such as Lev Vygotsky, who proposed the socio-cultural theory, and George Miller, who pioneered the information processing theory. This led to a modified understanding of Jean Piaget's theory in the sense that the stages of cognitive development are not separated by rigid boundaries and they vary from child to child. The age ranges for observing cognitive abilities proposed by Jean Piaget are, however, still true for children raised in modern societies today. Based on this reason alone, we believe that children who are 12 years old or older should be allowed to make their own decisions, including consenting to all aspects of gender affirming care. Considering that puberty starts between 10 and 11 years for most children, and puberty blockers are most effective if started before the beginning of puberty. Most children will not be able to consent to it before the beginning of puberty if the criterion of consent is based only on the arguments we have just presented. The second part of consent is informed decision. Informed decision requires a full understanding of all the pros and cons. It also requires that the psychologist or psychiatrists who helps transgender children through their decision-making process is absolutely unbiased, meaning that they are neither pro-gender affirming nor are they anti-gender affirming. This kind of person probably does not exist. If they do exist, there are not many of them around, and this is a major sticking point in informed decision. We should also keep in mind that up to 10% of all children will develop emotional and personal problems during childhood. Some of these problems may manifest as gender dysphoria, and it would be a great injustice to rush such children to make decisions about irreversible medical and surgical procedures like gender affirming care. Our next reason in favor of the right to consent is the frequency of experiencing regret. How often do children over the age of 12 years experience regret? And how often do adults feel regrets? There is no research evidence to show that the proportion of childhood decisions that are regretted later in life is higher than the proportion of adulthood decisions that are regretted later in life. In other words, decision made at any age can be a source of remorse or sorrow when one has had ample time to reflect on actual consequences. This reason, coupled with the age of cognitive development that we mentioned earlier, lead us to conclude that children who are 12 years old or older should be allowed to make decisions about gender affirming care. For the next section of this video, we consider gender affirming care as treatments for gender change. These include puberty blockers, cross-sex hormone therapy, and sex reassignment surgery. On the other hand, psychological and social care for gender dysphoria are gender supporting without gender change. None of the drugs used in gender affirming care has been approved by the American Food and Drug Administration or the European Medicines Agency for treating gender dysphoria, but the drugs continue to be used for that purpose. In the US, gender affirming care is covered by both Medicare and Medicaid, but recently, up to 19 states have partially banned gender affirming care for children. In Sweden and the United Kingdom, their public health services still pay for gender affirming care for children, but only in exceptional cases that have gone through psychological interventions without success and are regarded as persistent gender dysphoria. Several other European countries have adopted this practice because they claim that there is no conclusive research evidence to show that gender affirming care is effective at treating gender dysphoria. This claim is misleading. A systematic review shows that gender affirming hormonal therapy has positive effects on the psychological and social well-being of transgender children in the short term, although the strength of the evidence is generally weak. Similarly, a systematic review of psychological interventions for gender dysphoria by a group of Spanish researchers showed general improvements in psychological and social well-being, but the level of evidence is also generally weak. It appears that both gender affirming care and psychological care can improve the symptoms of gender dysphoria in the short term, but psychological care does not cause irreversible changes to the body, while gender affirming care does. For this reason, we believe that it is reasonable to block access to gender affirming care for children with gender dysphoria until there is proof that their well-being cannot be improved by psychological and social care. Gender affirming care is a pathway of hormonal and surgical treatments for changing the sexual appearance that a person was born with to the sexual appearance that is aligned with how they feel and how they identify. Nothing can change the genes of a person at a molecular level. We think that the teams that provide this care must demonstrate beyond reasonable doubt that each child going through this process makes informed decisions. There remains a controversy on whether the clinicians involved in gender affirming care always satisfy the requirements of informed decision. Thank you for watching this episode of Basic Hale, and we wish you a lifetime of euphoria.